Well, this is a report about prophecy being misunderstood. Not only was it misunderstood by the ancient people, all the way back to when Joshua took over the land with the people, and we're talking about 1500, 1450 BC. We're talking about the words from Yahweh, the Creator God, giving them hundreds of warnings. But in the text that you read in the scripture, you will also see Yahweh giving the promises that he has made to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And those promises included a covenant which he said he would bring them back to their land, that he would redeem them, that he would save them, and that he would look after them and protect them against their enemies. Now, I'm going to give you some of those words so that you can understand what Yahweh said, and it is mixed up in all of the prophecies. Yahweh said, I am coming to be in your midst. Yahweh said, I will be a wall of fire around you. Yahweh said, I will return in mercy. My temple will be rebuilt in Jerusalem. Yahweh said, I will save you, and you will be a blessing. Do not fear, let your hands be strong. I will give Israel over through Yahweh. They will walk with his name, Yahweh. Yahweh said, on that day Yahweh will protect the inhabitants of Jerusalem. Even the weakest of them will be as strong as David. Yahweh said, I will destroy all nations that come upon you. Now they thought that they were his chosen people. They thought they were still his blessed people when they came back from Babylon. But I'm going to show you that that is not the case. They were no longer his blessed people or his chosen people, Israel. Yahweh said he will wage war against all of the nations. He said, I will remove the names of the idols from the people. Yahweh, approximately 800 BC, said, for many years Israel will be without a king, but afterwards Israel will come looking for Yahweh in the end of days. And we are in the end of days. So there's some of the words that Yahweh promised, and the people back then, as much as the people back today, still think they are his chosen people, when in fact they are not his chosen people. Now, I've just given you the words from Yahweh, the Creator God. Now, you've got to realize that he is a God of truth, and he keeps to his word. And all of those promises, he's going to keep. But you have to ask the question, if he rejected all Israel back in 721 BC and let them be taken captive to Assyria, and all of the people by then had intermarried with all of the nations all around them. And King Solomon set a good example there when he took 700 wives from all of the different nations. You can understand there's no such a thing as the pure bloodline of the people of Israel and Judah. When he exiled Judah to Babylon, he exiled those people 586 BC, because one of the main reasons is their child sacrifice. They were burning their children and sons and daughters, burning them as sacrifices to idols. And you can imagine, those people, Israel and Judah, could not possibly be the kind of people worthy of being redeemed, brought back to their land, saved. So I'm going to show you now some of the words that Yahweh said about annihilating them, destroying them because of their wickedness. Now, have a look at these words with me, and I will just give you snippets of it because there's a lot more in the scriptures, but these are the words that are mixed into all of the scripture of the prophecies concerning the redemption of Israel. Yahweh rejects Israel and Judah, and he decreed plans to destroy them utterly. Yahweh their God said, "Do not pray to me. I do not accept them, for I am going to annihilate them by famine, by sword, and by pestilence." And you'll get that in those reference texts that I'll put on the screen. Yahweh warns about the rabbis and the priests at that time all the way through, and he said to them, he said to the people, "They speak in my name, but I did not send them. Take no notice of them." That's in Jeremiah 29:9. Now some of the other words that are mixed into these prophecies. They preach in my name, though I did not send them. As for you, Jeremiah, do not pray for these people. I will not listen. I will pour out my wrath upon all the nations that do not know me, and upon all of the families who do not call out in my name. I shall make Jerusalem a heap of rubble. Now that has not happened, even though people think that that has happened. That has never happened, but it will, a heap of rubble. And you, Jeremiah, do not pray for these people. I will not listen. They burnt their sons and their daughters as sacrifices to idols. You'll find that in Jeremiah 7:30-31. The end is upon you, and I will send my anger against you. My eye will not spare you, and I will have no compassion on you, and evil will come upon you. And it will be at the end of many days. In other words, to the time of the end. And all of the nations to the end of the world will perish. The lies that were told of the people by the leaders, by the rabbis, by the priests, these stubborn Jews never ever repented. They've been repeatedly told they were wicked and evil, killing their sons and daughters, conducting child sacrifices to idols, resulting in total rejection by Yahweh. But they still believed they were Yahweh's people and had his support and his authority to return to Jerusalem and to build the second temple. This they concluded by misrepresenting the prophecies out of Zechariah, Ezra, Nehemiah, etc. But in these prophecies, this is what Yahweh said. Now you might think, well, how is it possible for Yahweh, the Creator God, to keep all of his covenants, all of his promises, all of his agreements that he made with all of the people, with Abraham, Isaac, Jacob? How is he going to keep these promises? As I showed you in the previous report, it's quite simple to understand when you realize that there is no faithful people left. And you can't possibly think that there would be a bunch of criminals, murderers, cheats, adulterers, idolaters being redeemed. That's not what Yahweh said in his reports. So I'm going to show you a chart on how it will come about. Now on your screen you can see a chart to explain, to understand the two groups named Israel. The name Israel, talking about the name, it is owned by Yahweh. It is a name given by Yahweh to Jacob because he had overcome sin and he was faithful to Yahweh, heeding his laws. Now relate this to our way of life here in the world today. If a promoter of a football club found that his team were into drugs and booze, creating havoc, disrespecting the club's rules and laws, he then has the right to sack the lot and appoint a new group. But the new group is still called by the same name. And this is exactly what Yahweh has done to the first group of Israel. They've become so wicked, so evil, disrespecting Yahweh's laws, resulting in Yahweh being compelled to choose a new group of people, but they will still be called Israel. And this will be, it tells you quite clearly, this will be at the end of days. Now you might think that, well, all of these things that Yahweh said about annihilating them, killing them, wherever they went in the world, you might say to yourself, well, that didn't happen. If it did happen, it happened 1,000 years ago or 2,000 years ago. And you don't tend to place any faith or credence or credibility in the words of what Yahweh said he planned to do. So I want you to have a look at this. I'm going to give you some words of what has happened when we're talking about the terrible atrocities, the way people have been slaughtered over this period of time, or over the period of time since 550 BC. As you know, we just read there, Yahweh said, I will annihilate them by famine, by sword, and by pestilence. And it is a decree that this is what happened. Now, have a look at the list of some of the reports with me. From approximately 200 BC to 130 AD, that's 330 years. Antiochus sacked the temple. 2. The Jews adopted the Greek language, and that was an abomination. 3. In 140 BC, the Pharisees adopted the oral law, the Talmud. And the oral law is an abomination to Yahweh that is still upheld today, 2,500 years later. And that is the kind of false doctrine that Yahweh said, and you've seen the words with this report. Yahweh said, they speak in my name, but I did not send them. Take no notice of them. Item 4. In the returns to Babylon, 580,000 Jews were slaughtered. And you can get that information out of the Encyclopedia of the Jews itself and in Wikipedia. Item 5. The entire Pharisee, the minyan, that is 10 people in a minyan, they still have 10 people in a minyan today, according to their Talmudic rules. All the rabbis were executed. Rabbi Ishmael, he was a high priest, had his skin pulled off slowly. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamaliel, Sanhedrin president, and it's his son that taught Paul. And you'll get details of that in the New Testament, which is referred to as the Way. Rabbi Akiva, he was the top rabbi, and he was first flayed alive. Rabbi Hananiah ben Teradian, he was the interpreter for Sanhedrin, and he was burned at the stake with wet wool by a Torah wrapped around his body to prolong his death. Rabbi Huspith, Rabbi Eliezer ben Shamur, Rabbi Hanina ben Hakanai, Sanhedrin secretary, Rabbi Yeshivav, Rabbi Yehuda ben Dama, Rabbi Yehuda ben Baba. And then, of course, later, item 6, the Roman Empire came down with Titus and sacked the temple again. That's about 70 AD. Now, looking at what happened in more recent times, from 1000 AD to 1945, item 7. In 1648, 125,000 fell victim to the pogroms. Item 8. 1917, 200,000 were slaughtered in Ukraine. Item 9. 1915 to 1919, 600,000 were forcibly thrown out of Russia. Over 100,000 Jews perished through freezing exposure and starvation. Item 10. 1919, there were over 1,326 pogroms which massacred 70,000 Jews, and over 500,000 were homeless. Item 11. 1941. June 19, 13,000 Jews were slaughtered in Bucharest. Item 12, 1939 to 1945, and it's reported that 6 million more died and 1.5 million were children. And of course there is disputes about that report. But, item 17, it is estimated that 15 to 20 million people, Jews, have lost their lives since Yahweh's decree, when Yahweh decreed that he would annihilate them. And here we are, the rabbis still teach that the Jews, and it is a sin to speak the holy name of Yahweh. But Yahweh's decree is still in force until the end of days, and you'll see that in Ezekiel 9. So in a moment or two, I will give you the details of how the new form of Israel, or the new land of Israel, was restarted. Now you've seen all of the text, the evidence that proves that Yahweh rejected totally all of Israel and Judah and some of the atrocities and slaughters that have gone on. And you might wonder why they don't speak his name, Yahweh, even though the whole book is full of statements from Yahweh that his people will call him by his holy name, Yahweh. Now I'm going to show you some of the words that Yahweh said to his prophet Jeremiah and Isaiah when he said that I'm just so angry with these people, I'm not going to let them speak my name in their mouth anymore. And I'll read this to you in Jeremiah 44. As Yahweh banned from them speaking his holy name, this is 2,500 years ago, he has taken the ability for these corrupt evil people from understanding his holy name. Today they say they don't know how to interpret it, or they will say uttering it is a blasphemy sin, breaking the commandments. However, Yahweh is explicit that his true faithful people will call him by his name, Yahweh. And those who do not call out his name, Yahweh, will perish. And by using or uttering the name Hashem, which is Hebrew for the name, the Jews are profaning Yahweh's name wherever they go in the world. And Ezekiel 36:16-23 makes that very clear. So I'll put these words up for you so that you can do your own research, but it's important to realise today you've got a bunch of people that have usurped the position of being Israel, and they're not Israel. You've got a bunch of people that have gone back to the land in 1948 and claimed it as Israel returning. That's a lie. That is false doctrine, and they are no more Israel than your pet dog. Now I'm going to show you how that land, now called Israel, got reinstated. Now, this is an interview with the Rothschild family. It's an interview quite recently by Al Whitney, and I'll put the credit up with this writing, and I'll read you what Ben de Rothschild says. Baron Edmund Benjamin James de Rothschild, the benefactor, laid the foundations for the Jewish settlement in Palestine through his economic support for what came to be known as the First Aliyah, the wave of Jewish immigration from 1882 to 1903. He says, "We are becoming more and more important in the Israeli financial system, and our philanthropic activity in Israel is also growing. So we have decided to open ourselves a little bit more to the Israel public so we can be better known. If only," and here's a statement, "if only because my great-grandfather started the country. We would not want people to forget that." And that is from Al Whitney. Copyright permission is granted by redistribution if it's linked to the original Anti-Corruption Society is acknowledged. It goes on further, item 15. From 1913 to 1937, resettlement to Palestine was offered to all of the Talmudic Jews in Europe, and these people were to be used by the Rothschild oligarchy, that's a banking cartel, to rebuild a security force over the banking oil assets. Now that's what's happened, and that's how Israel that you have today from 1948 was restarted. Now, some of you have already seen the report that I gave to you called The Bible Tells Lies. And I explained to you with the evidence in that report that the secret societies are behind all of the religions, and they claim they have control of all of the religions in the world today. Now, you might find that hard to believe that this is true. And in that report, I showed to you that they have been implicated in changing the words in not only the Hebrew, but also, which is transferred over into the English, to lead people into false doctrine, false religions. And in Isaiah 7 and Isaiah 9 and Psalm 22, I showed you the Hebrew text and the English text, how that has been changed to prop up the existence of a sun god worship system. And this is a transfer over from all of the pagan religions. But also there's something that you would have seen in my reports. The Rothschilds, with their own money, they built the Supreme Court building in Israel. And this building is designed totally on the Masonic symbols. And in that building, there is a Masonic temple. And in that building, they have meetings with the secret societies, Illuminati, Skull and Bones, Club of Rome, Fabians, etc., Masons. These are the people that are behind every government in the world, and these are the people that own and control NATO. They own and control the United Nations. They own and control the military, and they own and control the media, and their influences are all the way through to the World Health Organization, the Trilateral Commission, CFR. These people have been controlling behind your back everything that you see and hear and wear and the air we breathe. They have corrupted the air with HAARP, H-A-A-R-P, and the chemtrails, putting poison in the air, which is also destroying our ecosystem, and I've given you reports on that. But this is what they've done with building their own building in Israel. Look, this is a pretty serious situation that we are in. As I've said to you in my reports, we are at war. But we're not at war with bullets and bombs. We're at war with the secret society's ability, using stealth, lies, and deception, that controls every part of our life. For example, the Fabian Secret Society has taken control of the Australian government. Almost all of the ministers are members of the Fabian Secret Society. Out of that, handed down from the United Nations, we have what is called Agenda 21. Agenda 21 is implicated in dozens of countries now with the so-called sustainable development. And this is a farce. And it's a bit of a joke, because the same people that control everything in your government have handed down to your government by treaties the Agenda 21 doctrine. And yet the same people also own and control the mining cartels. And they are given permission to go in and cut down 1,000 trees and put mining wells all over your land with impunity. But if a farmer was to cut down a couple of trees, he is going to be fined by the local government. And I might add too, the local governments, they're trying to make them a law unto themselves. In other words, give them the power of the third wave of government. And if this happens, this would mean that the employees in a council will have the same power as the police to arrest people. So beware, this is what's going to happen. And it leads into what the old book says, a time of trouble such as never was ever before in this earth's history. But it does get put a stop to by the hand of Yahweh. And I'll show you that briefly in the Daniel prophecy chart so that you can see what is going to happen to this evil oligarchy. Now, you've seen this report before, you've seen this chart before, covering Daniel 2, Daniel 7 and Daniel 8. Notice the common thread as you go through them, particularly when you get down to item 5 and item 4, where it quite clearly tells you that all of the governments will be converted into a corporation government. In other words, not the traditional constitutional government elected by the people, for the people, by the people and for the people. This is a corporation, and that means that the United Nations can come into your country, and that means that they can then take over your country and merely put in their own people into the board of directors of a corporation. In Daniel 7, you'll see there in item 4 that they will change seasons and change laws. Now already they have implemented what is called the Noahide laws, and the USA Congress and the United Nations have already adopted these laws from the Jewish Talmud, which will supersede and take over from the Ten Commandments as being the basis of the judicial system. It also means there where it says change the seasons. Already, through the use of HAARP, H-A-A-R-P, you can Google it and look it up, and the chemtrails, they can cause earthquakes, they can cause a drought, they can cause floods, and they can cause all sorts of seasonal changes. And of course, now they are blaming that on carbon, to get a carbon tax to pay for the global government. But it is not carbon or CO2, carbon dioxide, that's causing this problem. They are, by their hand, causing the global climate change. If you look in Daniel 8, it also shows you there that they're going to convert everything into a corporation government. And the secret societies, the Illuminati, the Vatican, the Talmud Jews, with their abominations, will take control of every part of your life. But again, as you can see in that prophecy, they are destroyed not by human hand. That means Yahweh puts a stop to them. In Daniel 7, down the bottom there, you can also see that they are destroyed not by human hand, but destroyed by Yahweh God. And in Daniel 2, it tells you that Yahweh God brings in his everlasting kingdom, and that everlasting kingdom is given to the saints. And the saints are those people that will be redeemed. They will be the second group of Israel. They will be the people that are true. They're not false. They're not criminal. They're not liars. They're not cheats. They are the people that will constitute his everlasting kingdom of people. Now, I've given you in this report a lot of information that you can do your own research. And we've started off by showing you that the misinterpretation of Bible prophecy has not only led the Jews into walking into a trap to be slaughtered. Realize one thing. The old book is full of stories where Yahweh doesn't come down with a sword and bows and arrows or machine guns or bombs. Yahweh doesn't come down to do the killing. He instigated his plans and is still instigating his plans by putting it into the minds of evil leaders, evil presidents, evil governments, evil people to fulfill his plans of what he has decreed, punishment or total destruction. And that is going to happen repeatedly until we get to the time of the end and he brings in his everlasting kingdom. And I'll just tell you something from my own heart. If Yahweh did not intervene and put a stop to the killing, the mayhem, the slaughter, the murders, if he didn't put a stop to it, how long do you think we would last? Man would kill man. This planet would be totally destroyed. And there's one thing that I've learned from the old book. Yahweh is not going to allow that to happen. So please have a look at this again. Look at my previous reports, and particularly the report I gave you that Israel is not Israel, the report that I've given to you that the Bible tells lies, and it will help you understand what really, truthfully, we are in for in this world. And may Yahweh God bless you and your family and keep you safe.